Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name's Marty. I'm one of the pastors at our Beaverton campus.
And my name is Dane. I'm one of the pastors here at our Willamette campus. Thank you for tuning in whenever you're watching this, whether you're in middle school or high school or college or elementary or whoever you are. We're just really grateful that you're tuning in, and we pray that these video messages would be a source of joy and hope. And we also are encouraging you to join in a small group of people around you to discuss what we're talking about. Marty, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, today we're starting a new series, and we're going to be talking about the God of all. Each week, we're going to look at a different aspect of who God is and what that means for our life. And today, we're going to kick it off with God is the God of all hope. God is the God of all hope. And this idea of God being the God of all hope, this is the reason why we're laughing is this is our second take. In the first
Marty
take,
messed that up
I
real
said,
bad the first time.
He was the God of all comfort. And then it was hope. So
spoiler alert, we're doing comfort next
we're
week.
doing
But
comfort
yes,
next week.
Marty, God of all hope.
He is the God of all hope.
Yes.
But this idea is all throughout the Bible, and we're going to be looking at a verse. We encourage you to turn there if you have a Bible. We're going to be looking at Romans 15, verse 13. Romans 15:13 says this: "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." Now, what is real hope? Have you ever thought about that question? But we talk about hope a lot in our culture, and I want you to think what hope really means. So I think in our culture, the way that we typically think of hope, we think of hope as a blind optimism, in the sense of just kind of hoping that things will work out, hoping that things in our life will be, even if they won't be. And there's nothing wrong with optimism. Like I tend to be an optimistic person. If you ask me the glass question of like, is the glass half empty or half full? I'm usually a half full kind of person. So there's nothing wrong with optimism, but sometimes optimism can be out of touch with reality. Like if I get diagnosed with cancer and I say, oh well, I hope that I'll just be fine. Right? My optimism has no impact in changing that diagnosis or making it go away. I can't actually change anything. Like if I don't have money in the bank right now and I just go to the store and like put a bunch of groceries in my grocery cart and go to the checkout and hand them my card and just say, well, I hope I have money in the bank. Like that doesn't change the amount of money that is actually present in my bank account. It doesn't matter how much I hope or how optimistic I am about how much money I have. Of like, I have a ton of money. If I don't have the money, it's not there. And so I think this is the way that we tend to think about hope. You know, when I was younger, I also really wanted to be in the NBA. One of my heroes was Muggsy Bogues. He's like 5 foot something, really short guy. But he was in the NBA and he was amazing. And so he was my hero, and I thought, well, if he could do it, I could do it. But at the end of the day, I'm not that great at basketball, and no amount of optimistic thinking could get me to the NBA, I must say. So, but with this optimism, I think our culture breaks that down in 3 ways. Dane, how do we tend to view this?
Yeah, Marty, and I love the examples, right? Like hope is something that's way different than optimism, which is where we're going to start, right? Because our culture tends to view hope in 3 primary ways. And the first one that we're going to look at is this idea of wishful thinking, right? And we even use language like, I hope for this, I hope for that, right? Maybe for those of you who drive, right, you've had that moment where you get in your car like 5 minutes late and you're late for an appointment. So you're like, man, I just hope that every light is green. I hope that there's no traffic, right? This idea of wishful thinking. I know that we've all been here, right? You have a test tomorrow. You have not studied for that test. And what do you hope? Man, I hope that it's just easy. I hope that it's multiple choice and that I'll just, like, my pencil will find the right bubbles to fill in, right? This idea of wishful thinking, right? This is one aspect in which our culture tends to view this idea of hope. But as we're going to see, that's not really what hope is, right? That's just a guess. That's a premonition. That's man, I'm just like begging, like white knuckling, I please. But that's not really what hope is. No. So that's the first example of how our culture tends to view hope. Secondly, Marty, take it away.
Yeah, the second way that we tend to view hope is this idea of expectant hope. And this is when you say, well, I hope that I passed the test because I studied really hard. I've worked really hard. I've showed up to class. I've put the diligence in. So because of that, I have this expectation that I'll probably pass the test. Or you might say, I hope that there's good weather this weekend, but you've checked your weather app and you've seen that the forecast is looking good. So your hope is built on some sort of expectation. Now, This hope is great and it's helpful, but even with expectant hope and even when we have reasons, sometimes things are outside of our control and the hope still doesn't work out. So you may study for a test and be really well prepared and have expectant hope and reasons for it, but when you show up for your test, you're not feeling good. Maybe you're feeling sick or you have a headache, you're feeling a little cloudy, and so you still don't score well on the test, even though you had expectant hope. Or maybe you thought, hey, I had this job interview and went really well. I feel like I'm the right fit for the job. I wrote a great resume, but it turns out that company had to pivot and they're just not hiring anymore. So even with expectant hope, when we do what we can and build our hope off of actions, even still, sometimes that hope disappoints. And that's why in the book of Proverbs, it says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a dream fulfilled is a tree of life. And man, haven't you experienced that where you had your hope in something and it didn't pan out, it didn't work out. And so what was the result? Well, your heart felt sick. You have this weight of disappointment. But on the flip side, you've probably experienced the dream fulfilled when that hope is rooted in something and it actually comes to pass. Man, that feels like a tree of life. You feel so good about that because your hope was placed and it came true. So the goal is to move beyond wishful thinking and to move beyond expectant hope to this third kind of hope.
Yeah, and that third kind of hope is, did I miss it right there? Yeah, there it is real hope. Right, a true hope that you can actually trust in, and hope might even be a tricky word to use here because there's a tendency to think of hope in a sense of like it might not happen. You're hoping it happens, but it might not. But this real hope we're talking about is maybe think of it more like a promise, right? This true hope that you can actually stake your trust and your faith in your life in, right? Like when I go home tonight after work, I'm going to go home and I'm going to see Tess. I'm going to say, Tess, I love you, and I hope that she'll say it back. But that's a real hope. I know that she loves me, right? And I'm not sitting there wondering, it doesn't keep me up at night wondering if the woman sleeping next to me loves me back. I know she does, right? It's this assurance that she is committed to me, right? And I know that she loves me back, right? I don't have to hope or wish or like expect, right? Like I just know it. And this is the kind of hope, like even way deeper than that, even though like a husband and wife's like love for each other is deep, like way deeper than that is the hope that God can provide to you and me. Because the God that we believe in, right, the God of the Bible, makes promises that we can 100% expect that he'll come through with, right? This hope that God brings us is way even beyond expectant hope because what God promises he's going to do, he's going to do it. And so when he calls himself, right, the God of hope, we can trust that that hope will not disappoint us, right? This expectant hope, right, that we read in the Proverbs, right, like a hope deferred makes the heart sick. We understand that when God says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And so we don't have to wait for that expectant, maybe it's not going to happen. We can put our whole trust in it, right? Hebrews chapter 6, talking about God's faithfulness and his steadfastness, says this. It says, this hope, talking about the hope that God provides, is a strong and trustworthy, get this, anchor for our souls. Right? What God says he's going to do in your life, that's something that you can anchor your souls in. Now, we all know that I'm somewhat of a nautical man, right? I've spent my fair share of time on a boat, right? And what do we know that anchors do, right? Anchors keep your ship from drifting away, right? And anchors keep your boat stable through a storm. And so if you use this analogy, right, of God's hope being an anchor for our souls, this provides us with stability, right? God's hope, the hope that God brings us, provides us with something to look to when we're in the middle of chaos, when we're in the middle of destruction. And so I would encourage you, right, as we're looking at this season, like in what ways is God your anchor? Right? In what ways can you actually put your hope and put your trust in God? Because this goes way beyond wishful thinking. This goes beyond expectant hope, right? This is real hope that only God can bring.
Yes, that's so good. So we leave you with this question today. What is your hope in today? What is your hope in today? Now, we would hope that it's Jesus. Jesus is the anchor for our soul. He's the one who connects us to God and keeps us tethered to God and his hope and his promises. I mean, you think about an anchor, there's no wireless anchors out there. I mean, can you imagine you're on a boat and you toss an anchor over the ship with no rope and it just sort of falls into the water and you think, well, that that did nothing, right? Every hope that we have needs a rope to tether to our hearts and to our life, and Jesus is the one who tethers our heart to God and his promises. So it'd be our hope for you, and that's beyond wishful thinking and expectant hope. It'd be our actual real hope for you, that would be Jesus. And when Jesus is your hope, here's some things that you can rely on, that you can know for certain, that you don't have to question or wonder, and that you can know for certainty that these things are true. And the first is how God sees you, his love for you, his acceptance of you. You don't ever have to question God's love for you, his desire to be in relationship with you. You can know that because of Jesus, and especially when you trust him, that you're forgiven, that you are loved, that he makes you new, that you have everlasting life. As somebody who is saying, I want to know and love and follow Jesus, you never have to question those things. And even if you're kind of on the fence and you're thinking, well, I don't know if I'm ready to say that I want to know, love, and follow Jesus, it doesn't change God's love for you and his heart for you, that he wants relationship with you.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you place your hope in Jesus, which is our prayer for you guys, that you would take that step and place your hope in him, the second thing you'll find is you have a place in God's family. And similar to that first one, God loves you so much and thinks the world of you and sent his son to die for you, regardless if you accept that truth or not. That's true of God. That's a one-way street that he cannot turn from. He loves you dearly. He also invites all of us into his family, and he views us as his children, as his beloved possessions, right? God is so proud of the people that he's made, and God's family is always open arms and is extended to everybody on earth. And so if you put your trust in Jesus, you can stake your hope in the fact that you have a place in the family of God, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing, right? Your identity is that of a child of God, which is the strongest identity because it can never be taken away from you.
Yes. And you can also be confident that no matter what happens, God is going to work everything together for the good of those who love him and are the called according to his purpose. That God works everything in our life to make us look more and more like Jesus. Whatever difficulty we're going through, whatever we're facing, God has a plan. He has purposes for your life. And even when you feel like the difficulty or the roadblocks in your life, like you can't break through them, like you can't find new opportunities, God is faithful and he will continue to lead you. One of my favorite verses in Philippians 1:6 says that the one who started a good work in you will be faithful to complete it until the day when Jesus comes back. You can take these promises to the bank, and the beautiful thing is that the Bible is full of hope that we can rely on. And the more you read the scriptures, the more you read about who Jesus is, the more you know God, the more you know his promises, and the more hope stays alive in your life. Peter says it's like a living hope that we have been given when we were born again because of God's mercy. So we leave you with that. What is your hope in? We hope that right now you can break out into some small groups, talk about these things with your family, with some friends, and discover what hope means for you today. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Love you guys.